Hello?
Hello.
Hello, Tom.
Hi, Joana. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for helping me out with this.
The main focus of my research in general was to find out how their relationship with wildlife was changing. Because Massai have been represented as being environmentally destructive on one side and as living in harmony with those wildlife on the other side. But one thing that was never mentioned was whether they found aesthetic value, if they found those animals beautiful or ugly. Talking to people who had worked for decades with Massai, they would say the same, if I ask the question, they only care about their cows. Cows is the only thing beautiful to them. No, they don't care as such about the beauty of wildlife. Of course not, they don't care. They don't care. And I thought, how plausible is that? You know, all of us, we pass aesthetic judgments on things in our lives on a daily basis. So I decided that was a huge gap that I needed to. I was not satisfied with that, so I wanted to find if Maasai appreciated aesthetically wildlife in general, how they aesthetically judged and appreciated different species, what were the species they found beautiful, what were the species they found ugly, and find out what are the characteristics that made those species beautiful and ugly. People would go on and on and on about how they would enjoy the sight of certain species in the landscape because they thought that made the landscape beautiful. They would also explain in very fine detail what made some species beautiful and other ugly. So there are some very precise and definite criteria for beauty and ugliness in wildlife. Beauty of giraffe, eland and gazelle was the strongest factor in influencing a protective attitude to those species, and ugliness of elephant, buffalo, and hyena, but not the lion, was the strongest influence in influencing people wanting to have them extinct, locally removed from the ecosystem. So one thing that has been studied, in Western context and setups is that the more an animal has human-like characteristics, and basically the more an animal looks or behaves like a human, so a mammal, and the way they move, the way they behave. So I'm thinking, apes, or even dolphins, we recognize human characteristics in them. So that makes them attractive to us. That's not the case among the Maasai. Similarity to humans is one characteristic of ugliness. And so that includes the baboons for them. The baboons are extremely ugly because they look like us. And elephants also have human-like characteristics that really make them ugly. So they cite the hand of the elephant, which is the trunk. They cite the female breasts, the position and the shape, and the intelligence. All these things together make it a very ugly animal. Plus, they are colorless, which is colorless means lack of contrasting colors. They have a dull color, and the Maasai always use that colorless criteria to explain why animals are ugly. So to me, there is some discrimination at play there, and it's. I think we are predisposed, of course, to enjoy, even as a scientist studying species, to enjoy working with something that pleases us aesthetically. So it's almost like we are hardwired to have a protective reaction to such species, also to mammals. Instead, snakes, some insects, and other invertebrates only elicit mostly repulsion and avoidance, and that's also probably hardwired, and that's a good thing because some of them are dangerous. So it's good to have an instinctive reaction where you try to avoid such species. So there are definitely some how do you say? I don't like to use too much the word instinct. There are definitely aspects to these feelings towards species that are hardwired in us as a result of evolution. But I also think, working with the Massai and seeing how some criteria are so different that there are some cultural aspects, and the same applies to art all over the world. There are some universal features in art appreciation and then local cultural features. And we mentioned that among the Maasai, to have human characteristics, it is a criterion that makes you ugly. For example, when the Maasai say that animals are colorless and the beautiful animals are the ones with stripes and spots and contrasting colors, this really corresponds to Maasai aesthetics that they also apply to their cows, that they apply to their beadwork, to the way they dress, and so on. So they have that same lens based on contrasting colors when they look at wildlife. It's not only the general public that is biased against ugly animals and favorably towards the cute ones, as conservation policy has been shown to be biased as well towards attractive animals that are larger, the mammals, diurnal, neotenic, colorful. And I think as both scientists and conservation policymakers, we should be aware of that bias. We should be more informed about it. We should acknowledge this bias maybe, and then we should fight it. I think we need more studies of the effect of aesthetic appreciation on different groups of species so that we acknowledge a bias exists. And there are more and more studies on that. Why is it that certain snakes are more represented in zoos worldwide than others? Why is it the case for birds as well? So more and more, I think this bias is being acknowledged for its effects on conservation policy. For sure, large animals are, if you're in nature, quote unquote, and you see large animals, it's definitely more exciting than, to me, I'm biased as well, than, to look on the floor looking for woodlouse, as cute as I think they are. Yeah, to me, more than focusing on just one species like the panda, I would find it very difficult to live in a world where, when I walk in the woods, I couldn't watch some animals, whether it's insects, birds, fishes, mammals, hear their sounds, see them move around, even when they're small, I think, and the Maasai say the same. When I see animals in the landscape, to me that landscape is more complete. It's more alive, and to me that's beautiful.